Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's session. I'm in a new location and new lighting today, and I actually spent a little bit of time before I started trying to figure out this shadow in the background, trying to get rid of it with the lighting I have. And I realized that I spent a lot of time doing it and couldn't quite figure it out. And honestly, that's what the topic of today is about, getting rid of the shadow. And that comes through forgiveness. So today we're going to talk about forgiveness and how to use it in your life. Now, I remember a long time ago when my brother and I was a teenager. I don't think he even was. He's 2 years younger than me. We got into an argument of some kind, and I think it was about Mario Kart. Now, if you go back to that game, for those of you who had the Super Nintendo, one of the greatest gaming systems of all time, well, I won. I mean, I killed him. I was probably the best ever, and I'm sure I was acting like an amazing older brother, not teasing him even a little bit. But we started to fight, as boys do. We had this big argument fighting. I mean, it was like Goombas going everywhere, Luigi's going there, but we had a big fight. And I ended up punching him in the eye. Now, he didn't react emotionally, even a little bit, but he got a black eye and he said, I am totally gonna take this for all it's worth. And he went to my parents and I ended up having to pay him money. Now, I know it's probably called extortion, but whatever. Now, that level, we've had many other things where I was clearly at the wrong. I love my brother, but that little event could have created a huge divide between us for a lifetime. Now, you may say, that's ridiculous, Jim. That never happens. Oh, yeah? Well, I see people on a weekly basis who do not talk to family members for decades in some case because of a wrong that's so much more minor. They didn't come to an event. They didn't send a Christmas card. They snubbed you at a social program. These kind of things can cause huge divides. But we also have problems internally. We make mistakes that we don't forgive ourselves for. You think, oh, if I'd only done this. If I'd only done that in my career, I'd be in a different place. If only I'd chosen a different partner or gone to that degree program. These things stick with us for a lifetime, but we have to get rid of them. They're like a giant monkey on your back that you're walking through like, oh, and you feel it. And it takes so much energy to carry these with you. So what do you do? Well, we're gonna go through a process here today, and hopefully I'll be able to get a meditation up a little later today as well that can help you through this program. But the first piece is this. We acknowledge the wrong. So whoever wronged you for whatever reason, you got to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that this occurred. Event X occurred and it caused this kind of trauma. And it's just acknowledging it. Now, it could be something you did, maybe a mistake you made, a choice you did, whatever it is. You say, I did X, or this person did X to me. The next thing is to feel the emotional impact. Feel the emotional impact. Feel how that hurts. Like, I have a few friends who have been in car accidents because of texting. So they're just not paying attention and they're texting, and next thing you know, they either roll into the car in front of them, or maybe they cause like a minor fender bender in a different situation, like a parking lot, because of texting. And I've heard them say, oh, if only I'd made a different choice, and they beat themselves up forever about this minor thing. Now, in all those cases are minor, legitimately, no one got hurt, just their wallets when they had to pay out some settlement stuff, but still you beat yourself up. Or if I'd just done better at that academic program, I'd be somewhere else. But feel the emotional impact, feel it, and feel into it. Now, this is really hard. So if you've been through like a really deep trauma or challenge, I'd encourage you to find a qualified counselor or life coach and help you get through that process. There are tons. And all of them are great options, no matter who you choose. But coaching in some respects can help you more, especially if you're at a place where you've been to counseling and you feel like you can't get out of that trauma. The coaching will help you move it into the forward. Whereas counseling is designed to take you from negativity into function, coaching takes you from function to optimization. So we want to get you into function and then ideally even operating better because of it. But again, step one, we acknowledged it. Two, we feel the emotional impact. Now, the third one is the most difficult piece, and it's easily said and not simply done. And that's choose to release it. You have to decide on purpose. You, dear listener, dear viewer, have to say, I'm not going to let this affect me anymore. I am deciding to let it go. Now, that can be really difficult for those of you who've been assaulted or hurt or physically harmed. To choose to let that go is not an easy process, but I'll tell you, it doesn't happen with time. There was this old song by Enya where it's like, time heals all things. Like, it doesn't, like not even a little bit. So you have to choose to decide to let it go. Now, I'm going to give you some kind of sub points here on the decision to let go. One of it is if you go to a religious program, some people will help you through that forgiveness piece, through a spiritual principle. Some people will meditate to let it go. I recently went to get a tattoo. I had been through a big challenging situation, and I chose that I'm going to decide that with this tattoo, it marks the challenge I went through, and I'm going to release the pain associated with it through this process. And it actually kind of worked. I mean, it was really impressive how well it worked. So for you, what can you release and how can you decide to let it go? And for other folks, another piece that could work is journaling. Write all this stuff out. Just completely write it out and let it go. In fact, a few of my friends will burn it. They write out the exact trauma, how it affected them, and then they take it and say, like, I'm choosing to release it, and they'll let it go, and so through burning it into the air. And one of my friends just did that on a recent full moon, which is pretty neat and pretty. But why would we want to do this? Why would we forgive it all? Well, forgiveness is associated with crazy health problems. So believe it or not, heart problems, and then also kind of your almost base area, your physical, like stomach area, those problems can be associated by a lack of forgiveness. And they actually can get worse if you don't forgive right. Well, what do you mean? Forgiveness seems so good. Well, if you forgive, but say, I forgive my partner if they will do this from now on. So it's called conditional forgiveness. So you say, I forgive you if they do Y. But if they do it again, I'm not going to forgive them. And this can be organizationally too. Like, I forgive my organization, my business, my company for what they did if they never do it again. That conditional forgiveness leaves us kind of watching for the next shoe to drop. Now, in relationships especially, like if I went around with my spouse and said, oh, well, I forgive you if you do this, I'm never going to get better, because my wife, my spouse will always make some kind of mistake, just like I do, because guess what? We're not perfect. None of us are. So what you have to do is just forgive entirely. That can be really, really hard. And that's why the assistance of either group work or counselor or coach can be so helpful in this phase. So the other part of it is what happens when we release these things. We forgive our partner or spouse or ourselves. It's associated with longevity. You live better, you live healthier, and you also live empowered. So what does that mean? When you go through challenges and you go through traumas, and I've been through some crazy ones that I'll be talking about throughout the next few sessions, but when you go through that trauma, it's designed to help you empower other people, and that makes you empowered. So for instance, let's say you've been through a sexual assault and you've healed through it and you've decided to forgive. You've been through the counseling, you've been through the work. Those who've been through that situation are exceptionally strong, and they're also uniquely empowered to help other people who are dealing with it. And when you've been through it, that gives you the credibility to speak into their lives and to coach them, mentor them, and help them. For those of you who might have survived a big medical issue, I'm thinking of cancer survivors. Those folks who've been through the process, they are uniquely empowered to mentor, help, and encourage those who are going through the very difficult healing process, which is exceptionally hard. I have a number of friends who've lost legs in combat. And what they'll do is they will help people going through those initial stages, whether they're military losses or not. They're just helping people to realize that that is not a limitation at all. Oh, initially it is. But I'll tell you right now, I'm in the gym in the morning with people who have lost 1 or 2 legs and are killing it, to the point where I'll look up and say, I don't really want to do that next set. And I see this dude rocking his life with his prosthetic, just killing it. And I'm like, well, I have no excuses in my life, because he's chosen to live empowered by it. You can choose to let traumas define you and your past and stay there, or to set your future up for major success. But it's your choice. You decide. No one decides for you. No one did this to screw up your life. You get to choose how you respond to the things that come in your life. You can respond and live in the past, and that's totally acceptable. I'm going to tell you, you will not hit your destiny that way. What you can do is to choose to process it, get through it, release it, and then help others with it. And I will tell you, those people who've gone through this process, they've forgiven and they live empowered, and they mentor those around them who are going through that difficulty in the earlier stages. They are so crazy powerful. They are people you look at and they're almost glowing because they're in the flow. So I'm going to encourage you today to forgive, to give it a go, And I know this is a process. This isn't like, yep, I went through this major life trauma and ding, I'm better, or I'm going to write in a journal or get a tattoo. That's not it. It's processing it, and it is a process. But whatever you do, don't just wait for time. Time does not heal anything. It just makes things worse, frankly. And what I don't want you to do is to live a life that just doesn't matter. And when we live in those difficult traumas, those hard days that are in the past, it's like walking around with weights on your shoulder. You can still do it, but it causes all kinds of pain. So release it, let it go through a process. And if you need help, you can reach out to me. The website's below. I'm happy to help you through the process. Or you can give a go at the meditation, which I'll pop up right after this, God willing. And I just want to thank you for listening and supporting me on my journey as I figure out this process for doing YouTube. I hope you have a spectacular day.